Well, hello everybody, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So today I'm doing a book review and the name of the book is entitled Darius the Great is Not Okay. Let's see if I can get that to focus, it's kind of glaring. And this is written by Adib Khorram. Now, I went into this book pretty much knowing nothing about it, but boy, what an amazing read it turned out to be. So the book follows Darius, a friendless, tea-obsessed, clinically depressed, half Persian, half American teen who refers to himself as a fractional Persian. That is to say, he isn't at all connected to his Persian family or culture. So he doesn't really feel like a very good Persian. Hell, even his little sister speaks better Farsi than he does. So Darius, he is nerdy and awkward, terrible at sports, and feels as though he really doesn't fit in anywhere. At school, he is kind of the chubby loner who is a prime target for bullies. And it doesn't help matters that Darius has a super critical, disapproving father who has taken on the task of monitoring and making snide remarks about every bite of food that Darius puts into his mouth, continually reminding the boy that he needs to lose weight. You know what I found interesting is that how Darius always refers to his father by his first and last name. For instance, he'll say, Stephen Kellner said this, Stephen Kellner said that, Stephen Kellner came into the room, etc. Another favorite name that Darius has for his father is Ubermensch. Given that his father is a handsome blonde German who, in Darius's eyes, seems to be the perfect idealized man. But overall, Darius feels that he is a huge disappointment to his father, and the way he sees it, his father makes no effort to hide that disappointment. Now, the one thing that both Darius and his father do have in common is that they both need to take daily medication so that the depression doesn't get out of hand. So one day, Darius's life changes when he's told he's going to be taking a trip to Iran for the first time with his mom, dad, and sister to meet his mother's family, including his grandparents, who up to this point he has only known via Skype. The reason for the trip is that his grandfather, Babu, has a brain tumor and doesn't have much time left. So I think this is the first book that I ever read that was set in Iran. So I really appreciated learning about the Persian culture and the vivid descriptions of food, historical landmarks, and customs. I especially enjoyed the peppering of Farsi throughout the story. So once in Iran, Darius meets a boy named Khorram, the neighbor boy who is quite close to Darius's grandparents, as it turns out, and everything changes. First off, Khorram convinces Darius to play soccer with him and his friends, and Darius is surprised that he kind of likes it, and he's even more surprised to discover that he's good at it. Then the two visit various historical landmarks together, and through Khorram, Darius learns more about his heritage and begins to feel like a true Persian for the first time in his life. Khorram even calls him Darius, which is the original Persian version of his name, though I'm probably massacring it. So Darius soon discovers that he can not only confide in Khorram, but Khorram actually seems to understand him, perhaps the only person in Darius's life who does. He also makes Darius feel included, like he belongs. But most importantly, Khorram helps Darius to realize his self-worth and helps him to accept who he is. So I really enjoyed the well-written portrayal of the many relationships in this book, but Darius and Khorram have the most heartwarming friendship that I've come across. It was a delight watching them grow closer as they got to know each other. In the beginning, we saw as Darius struggled with body image issues and mental health issues, but as his relationship with Khorram deepened, we see him begin to embrace his cultural roots and in so doing accepting himself for who he is. It's quite an emotional journey that Darius went on and a fun one for the reader to experience. One of the consistent themes running through this book was the importance of family and friends. Family seemed to be really important here, especially since it plays such an essential part of Darius connecting with his Persian heritage. But moreover, it was beautiful to see Darius bond with his Persian grandparents, aunts, and uncles and cousins, all of whom he's never met in person. But aside from the friendship between Darius and Khorram, my favorite relationship in the book was the fragile connection between Darius and his father, or the Übermensch. So even though that they both lived with depression, Darius did not feel at all close with his father. In fact, the relationship was frosty, tense, and pretty much fraught with miscommunication. And the only closeness between the two of them was when they silently watched Star Trek together every evening for 1 hour. But then they both begin to view each other in different ways, and they both begin to understand that things are not always as we perceive them. I really love the fact that being in Iran not only brought Darius to self-acceptance, but also helped mend the relationship between him and his father, and illustrated nicely how our assumptions can often cause us to mistrust and misunderstand others. I also really liked the representation of clinical depression in this book. We learned early on that Darius and his father are both living with depression, though it's not central to the plot. But there are several touching and poignant discussions on mental health, and through these conversations, the characters acknowledge how challenging it can be to manage clinical depression, but that it can ultimately be controlled. It was refreshing to see depression discussed so openly between the family members, and I thought that the mental health elements were handled expertly, which really isn't surprising once we learn in the author's note that this is an own voices representation. So for my verdict, Darius the Great is not okay. It's an emotionally compelling story that deals with many serious topics. Clinical depression, feeling like you don't belong, cultural and personal identity, grief, friendship, feeling that you're not good enough, our bonds with others, and the strained relationship between a father and a son who are unable to communicate with each other. But most of all, this was a lovely coming-of-age book about a boy connecting with his Persian heritage and discovering himself in the process, and realizing that, in fact, he does belong. Darius is such a unique and relatable protagonist that you couldn't really help but fall in love with him. And the other characters in the book were equally amazing and equally complex. So I really enjoyed delving into the big Persian family as they learned to accept and understand each other. And it was refreshing to see that they all had their various flaws, faults, and imperfections, but loved each other nonetheless. So all in all, Darius the Great is not okay. Is a story with memorable and endearing characters that is full of heart that I absolutely loved. So that does it for my review of Darius the Great is Not Okay. Have you read this book? If so, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. So that about does it for this review. As always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. And if you like this video, I appreciate it. Give it the old thumbs up, as it really helps my channel out. So I will talk to you in the next video. Roger and out.